Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you the most complete and detailed tier list for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure GS. I'll be ranking everyone from SSR all the way down to SR because honestly, I don't think our units are worth ranking. The goal is to give you the clearest overall picture possible before you decide whether to pull on the gacha or build your team. Let's go. First, let's talk about Tier S, the must-have characters on the server. These are the units that, once you have them, can make the game feel almost twice as easy. Starting with Giorno. This guy is basically the game's national main healer. His life creation skill provides insane healing combined with long-lasting regeneration. On top of that, his reflective shield passive both protects allies and reflects damage. But what impressed me the most is the combination of his second ultimate, Consciousness Rampage, which reaches a 100% incapacitate chance at max level. Targets affected by this debuff also take an additional 80% damage. Imagine combining that with your main DPS. That boss is basically going on a literal victory parade. Next up is Jotaro, a name that alone is enough to make any JoJo fan scream. His time stop is easily one of the most overpowered ultimates in the game. It stops time for 3 seconds and unleashes 12 consecutive attacks, with the final hit dealing up to an additional 800% attack based on the target's lost HP. Honestly, every time I activate his ultimate, it feels like I'm watching the original anime scene all over again. It's just incredible. Bruno is no less impressive, thanks to his insane ability to trap a target inside zipper space, completely removing them from the battlefield for 5 seconds. His Gone passive also continuously reduces the enemy's energy while he's in stealth. He's the kind of incredibly annoying control character that can completely disrupt your opponent, especially in PvP. Diavolo needs no introduction either. He has insane burst damage, starts the battle in stealth, and also has an undispellable isolate mechanic, making him especially effective against targets suffering from persistent debuffs. In my opinion, Caesar Antonio Zeppeli is the king of AoE damage across this entire tier list. His unique ricocheting bubble mechanic, combined with his ability to retrieve them, is incredibly creative. The longer he fights, the more attack speed he gains, allowing him to clear enemies faster than almost anyone else. He's also particularly effective against vampire and zombie enemies. Koichi is an excellent damage buffing support. He can place onomatopoeia traps that repeatedly immobilize enemies, while also providing crit buffs to teammates through his unique special attack mechanic. And then we have 2 SR characters whose power is honestly not far behind the SSR units, Tonio, Trendy, and Pet Shop. Tonio is basically the national chef of the game. He provides constant passive healing for the entire team, dispels debuffs, and restores energy extremely well. He's an essential support for any team designed around long-term survival. As for Pet Shop, he's the king of crowd control, with widespread freeze and chill effects. His enhanced basic attack also provides surprisingly devastating splash damage for an SR unit. I'd honestly go as far as saying that Pet Shop is currently the strongest SR character on the server. Moving on to Tier A. These characters are extremely versatile. They might not be your primary carries, but leaving them out can cost your team a huge amount of power. Costello is a tough tank with a continuous shield mechanic that protects both herself and low HP allies. She also takes reduced damage while shielded, making her perfect for players who prefer a more defensive and reliable playstyle. FF brings an incredibly creative mechanic with Plankton Colony, which remains permanently on the battlefield. She can also steal enemy stats to buff herself, meaning the longer the battle goes on, the stronger she becomes. Siocolata brings a nasty dot playstyle through Mold Infection. His Despair Reversed passive is especially interesting because it allows him to effectively cheat death once per battle by reviving after taking lethal damage. Mohammed Avdol is the definition of burst AoE fire damage. His burn stacks can become absolutely devastating, and the more enemies affected by burn, the faster he regenerates energy. Nadul is a high-quality single-target DPS with consistent stuns and stealth removal, leaving enemies with very few ways to escape. Joseph Joestar has a unique damage transfer mechanic, along with the ability to pull enemies together and stun them in an AoE. Just like other Heyman users, he's also particularly effective against vampires and zombies. Well, A. Zeppeli is, in my opinion, the best single-target main healer in Tier A. His Deep Pass Overdrive passive can restore up to 200 energy per second, making him incredibly valuable in long battles. Robert E.O.'s Speedwagon is the king of AoE shielding based on max HP. He also provides reliable dispelling and energy recovery, making him an incredibly well-rounded support. Lisa combines crowd control, energy recovery, and the ability to avoid attacks through unselectable. She's an extremely flexible unit. And finally, Kenzo rounds out Tier A with team-wide crit rate buffs and an extremely powerful mechanic that reduces the crit resistance of bosses, making him particularly valuable in difficult PvE content. Now we move on to Tier B. These characters are pretty solid, but they need the right team or situation to truly reach their potential. Prosciutto has a wide senility effect and a very satisfying execute mechanic when enemies fall below a certain HP threshold. Whole Horse continuously snipes enemies with his basic attacks, bypasses armor, and restores his own energy, making him surprisingly durable in extended fights. Keicho Nijimura is a summoner who brings tanks and helicopters into battle. He also gains attack based on the number of allies, making him particularly effective in larger team compositions. Akira Otoishi has an interesting mechanic that steals energy through basic attacks, along with the ability to revive using his electric battery mechanic. He's surprisingly difficult to take down. Gyachio is a nightmare for ranged teams. He can reflect damage based on his defense and continuously freeze enemies, making him a very formidable tank. Sekko specializes in grounded control to prevent enemies from escaping, while also generating shields based on the number of enemies he hits. Sportsmax summons corpses that inflict dot and has a fake death mechanic that prevents him from being immediately eliminated after taking a fatal hit. Jangali A is a dedicated sniper with insane single target damage reaching up to 2000% attack, while also ignoring stealth. Unfortunately, his channeling mechanic can be risky because it can be interrupted. Chaka can rapidly increase his attack speed after securing an assist kill and has strong defense penetration. Santviento drains HP based on his defense and becomes surprisingly tanky thanks to his max HP increase whenever units around him are defeated. And finally, Rudolf von Stroheim acts as a highly durable tank who can continuously recover HP based on his defense while also repeatedly knocking enemies back. Next is Tier C. These characters depend much more heavily on specific team compositions and situations to reach their maximum potential. Leonia Baccio is a decent shield and defense support, but he lacks offensive power. His moody jazz decoy mechanic for drawing enemy attacks is interesting, but that's about where his strengths end. Narantia Gurga has good AoE damage and can detect stealth enemies, but his relatively long cooldowns make his overall pace slower than expected. Guido Mista has decent single target damage, but his second ultimate becomes less effective when facing groups of enemies, which is a little disappointing for such a beloved character from the original series. Malone summons Babyhead for ranged attacks and can enter stealth to survive, but he needs quite a lot of time to build up growth before reaching his true potential. Lang Wrangler buffs ranged damage for the entire team and creates an area that stuns enemies. He's a niche, but useful support for specialized ranged teams. Formaggio has a fun ability that throws a card to stun and knock enemies back, along with his shrunken mechanic that reduces enemy size and a separate stealth mechanic for energy recovery. Viviano Westwood can summon meteors that inflict burn, but he needs to cast several skills to optimize his combo, making his gameplay feel somewhat complicated. And Tarukas closes out Tier C with the ability to pull enemies closer, suppress them, and execute low HP targets. He's reliable, but doesn't bring anything particularly groundbreaking. Finally, we have Tier D. These are the characters I recommend thinking twice about before investing your resources, unless you're a hardcore fan of the character from the original series. Mario Zucchero specializes in breaking shields and removing buffs from single targets. His deflate effect is decent, but overall, he lacks the firepower needed to compete with higher tier characters. Captain Dragon depends heavily on stacking Barnacle and channeling his ultimate. Unfortunately, that channeling mechanic is very easy to interrupt, which can make playing him pretty frustrating. You can be in the middle of a great combo, and sudden loom, it gets interrupted. and there goes the whole setup. Now we've reached the part I think many of you have been waiting for, my team building recommendations. If you're a new player just starting out, I recommend prioritizing Tier S supports and healers like Giorno or Tonio Trendy. Survival should always be your first priority, especially during the early game, because it helps you progress through content without getting stuck. After that, you can start looking for a main DPS like Jotaro or Diavolo to speed up your clear times. And don't overlook Pet Shop. Even though he's only an SR, his power is genuinely exceptional. He's one of those rare cases where lower rarity absolutely does not mean lower power. For those of you building a PvP team, I think the combination of Bruno Bucciarati isolating the enemy carry and Koichi Hirose buffing your team's damage can create enormous pressure right from the beginning of the match. For veteran players who are looking to optimize their teams for difficult content, I'd recommend taking advantage of the synergy between Caesar Antonio Zipoli for fast AoE clearing and Kenzu for team-wide crit rate buffs. Together, they can make dungeon farming significantly faster and more efficient. As for Tier C and D characters, being placed lower doesn't mean you should never use them. It simply means they require more setup or are better suited to specific situations. If you already have one of them, you can absolutely build them temporarily for basic content. There's no need to re-roll your entire account just because you didn't get a top-tier character. And that's the complete tier list I've put together for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure GS. This is entirely my personal ranking based on my own experience and a detailed analysis of each character's skills. So if you have a different opinion, don't hesitate to leave a comment below and let's debate it together. Who knows? Maybe you've discovered some crazy combination that I've never even thought about. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps motivate me to create more high-quality content like this. I'll see you guys in the next video.